Welcome to Anchors Away, a podcast for boaters. As a marina owner and Freedom Boat Club franchise owner on Lake George, I get to see every day the joy that boating brings to people's lives. There's nothing like seeing the smiling faces headed out for a fun day on the water and the experiences we help provide and memories we help make as people disconnect from their busy lives and reconnect with family and friends. Our podcast features conversations with boating experts and industry leaders where we discuss things like how to get into boating, industry trends, boating destinations, tips, tricks, products, and more. From beginners to experienced boaters, we hope these conversations will inspire you to get on the water, spend more time on the water, and introduce others to the boating lifestyle. Alex Caslow, with his wife Casey, founded and owns Redbeard Sailing, the official U.S. dealers for MiniCat, Xcat, Reverso, and RowOnAir brands. Alex was introduced to sailing by his grandfather at a young age and has been able to turn that passion into a career, helping others experience the same joy he gets out on the water under sail. In 2015, Alex and Casey did some extensive research looking for a portable sailboat option as consumers and were so blown away by the MiniCat that they built a business around it. They then added Xcat and later Reverso and RowOnAir, and Redbeard Sailing started to take off. The flagship line, MiniCat, is a unique, small and light but full-bodied sailing boat, a catamaran with inflatable floats with excellent sailing characteristics and simple control. All MiniCat models fit in a car, camper, yacht, or on a plane. They can be assembled in 30 minutes or less with no extra tools required. Alex and Casey have decided that they will be involved in many charitable sailing events nationwide and have made it part of their mission to keep today's youth involved with sailing and provide children everywhere with an opportunity to experience the sport. Hope you enjoy my conversation with Alex. Alex, thanks so much for joining us. Excited to chat with you today. Before we really get into boating in your life, the first thing I need to know is, should I be calling you Alex or should I be calling you Redbeard?
You know, if people call me all kinds of different things, but Alex or Redbeard works fine, whichever you prefer. Okay. Hopefully I'll answer.
All right, good deal. Yeah. So how did you get into boating? Was there something that drew you to the water early in life, or is it something you picked on later on in life?
I grew up sailing on my grandparents' Bristol 29 in the Chesapeake Bay. So I've kind of been doing it forever. I didn't get to do the Wednesday night racing when I was a kid, so I would always be down by the water, tooling around, fishing and swimming and all kinds of stuff like that. But I would always do the weekend cruises with my grandparents growing up, and I kind of fell away from it a little bit as that boat began to, fall into disrepair as my grandparents aged. But once I was able to afford to get back into the sport, I did.
Do you have a first memory, anything that stands out as really your first memory on the water?
Probably my first, the thing that kind of, concreted sailing into my life would be, I don't remember how old I was or even when it was, but I was young, and I went sailing with my grandparents. It was just them. We went for the whole weekend. I believe we went down to the Y River, and we anchored. We went swimming. There were sea nettles everywhere and stuff like that, so they had this big net that they would put out to create like a sea nettle-free pool. And we also hung chicken necks off the side of the life rails. And as a kid, I was like, I knew how to fish, and I was like, so how do you catch the crabs if you just tie the string around it? Where's the hook? And I know that that's not necessarily sailing, but it was just it's the freedom that sailing gave us to be able to do that. And I caught about a bushel of crabs just from the chicken necks off the side of the boat. And there were soft crab sandwiches from the sloughers and everything like that. It was that memory. I don't think I'll ever forget that. Just the encompassing experience of sailing and what it can afford to you as a, kind of a cruising sport. That's kind of how I grew up, was cruising.
Do you remember learning to sail? And, it's a pretty kind of a lifelong learning process with sailing, but
it's kind of a lackluster story. I kind of, as a kid, I ignored my grandparents, and my grandfather's probably the best sailor that I've ever met. And I didn't pay nearly enough attention. So I kind of had the basic idea. And then when my wife and I had enough money, we bought a Pearson 26, and we kind of hit the learning curve hard. We made a lot of mistakes that cost us a lot of money. But yeah, I would say, I don't know if you've seen the movie Moana, but I am self-taught
I've got a 3.5-year-old that sings Moana all the time. So yeah.
Yeah.
Did your wife grow up boating, or did you introduce her to it?
We introduced her to it. She doesn't have as much experience as I do. She tends to get a little on the seasick side. So the smaller boats are nice because that you don't really get seasick on a small boat. But I think she has issues with keel boats and the wave action and the motion that you get on a keel boat.
Do you guys do any power boating, or is it exclusively sailing?
My uncle has a few power boats, and she doesn't seem to get seasick on that. But for me, it's almost like a religious thing. And my grandfather called them stink pots, and so it was always you're either a stink potter or a sailor. And so I've kind of stuck to that. I'm more of the sailor side of things than a stink potter.
Do you guys primarily sail in the Chesapeake area still, or have your businesses taken you to a lot of different places to experience sailing around the country or around the world?
So we sail primarily in the Chesapeake. The boats that we sail afford us the luxury of picking where in the Chesapeake we want to sail. We can kind of sail farther down the bay. We can sail farther up the bay and kind of get different pieces of it, Susquehanna, that sort of thing. But with these boats, I have sailed now in Lake Como in northern Italy, wow, which was absolutely an amazing experience that I would recommend to anybody that's interested in destination sailing or just kind of seeing a different place, because that was just literally 360 degrees of Swiss Alps.
That's awesome. But you have some nice pictures of that.
Yeah. We actually have a video. We have a 360 video of us doing it. It is kind of promotional, but if you type into Google MiniCat 360, it's a 360 video of us sailing on Lake Como on one of our boats, the MiniCat.
Perfect. It's a business expense too, even better.
Yeah, it was dirt cheap because it's not really a tourist attraction. Like Lake Como is where Italians go on vacation. Huh. So most, other people, they go to Rome or they go to Sicily and stuff like that. But Lake Como, it was almost exclusively Italians. There were even limited people that the English was kind of broken English kind of thing. But, we did the whole trip. We stayed for almost a week. And two of us, airfare, rental car, and lodging, where my room, I could have spit into the lake for less than $4,000 US.
Wow, that's awesome. Anywhere on the list coming up? Any trips planned in the near future?
Yeah, it's not as far, but we're going to be sailing. We're going on a family vacation to Deep Creek, and I'm going to be taking the Happy Cat, which is our newest inflatable sailboat, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Lake sailing is kind of totally different than bay sailing, because on the bay there's always waves, so you're always contending with that kind of sea states and that sort of thing. Whereas on lakes, the wind is a little bit more intermittent, but it's just a sheet of glass, which is I'm pretty excited about.
Talk me through the boats you've owned. I know you mentioned the Pearson and now some of the boats that you work with in your business. What was the evolution of your boat ownership?
So I inherited the Bristol 29 from my grandfather. I like to say it was in varying stages of disrepair, but it was in complete disrepair. So we sailed it for a little bit, but it needed a significant amount of work. And at the time I was late teens, early 20s, and it just wasn't something that I was able to even afford to keep it somewhere. So we ended up selling that. And then we ended up, after we had gotten married, we went out and bought a Pearson 26. And we sailed that for a season or two, and that was an absolute blast. It was definitely different sailing than the Bristol, but it was a lot of fun. We kept it in Rock Creek down in Pasadena, Maryland, and we had an absolute blast. We would sail in crazy wind. We would go out and we'd bob in no wind in July. And once that, we were kind of like, this is still expensive. The slip is still a significant portion of the expense of the boat, not including any of the repairs that it needed and that sort of thing. So I ended up selling that. And then, of course, while running away from all of these repair fees, I went out and bought a total project boat in an Iroquois 30, which is a 30-foot catamaran made in England that can fly a hull, which to me, I was like, oh my gosh, a 30-foot cat that can fly a hull, it's got to be terrifying. But I didn't quite get that off the ground. I wasn't really into the fiberglass repair as much as I would need to for that. I actually sold it to a couple that was in Arizona that they sold their house. They flew out. They took ownership of the boat. They spent 2 weeks at the slip that we had it in fixing it up. and then they sailed it to Miami. So clearly I missed something there.
Did they make it to Miami? That's the question.
Yeah, they lived on it. They lived aboard for 2 years before I think they ended up selling it.
Cool.
It was a nice boat, but it was definitely more than I could handle as far as expense and that sort of thing. And that kind of like triggered the whole, we need to find a different way to do this, because how we're doing it right now, it's not working. And we need to find, the trailer is something that you could kind of get into. And I had looked at a couple of different trailer boats, but my wife knows me all too well, and she knows that a trailer boat is just going to sit in the driveway on the trailer. It's not going to move from there or anything like that. So, I wanted something that wouldn't take a lot of storage, didn't require a V8 truck to tow it around. And, through some serious digging on the internet, including Google translating internet forums in other languages like German and Russian and that sort of thing, that's when I kind of fell into our first manufacturer, which was MiniCat. And a couple of email exchanges later and a business plan to the manufacturer, and we were somehow found ourselves as the U.S. dealer.
So did you have any intention of going into this kind of business, or just totally stumbled on it as a consumer and then decided to look a little more into the business side of it?
Yeah, so I stumbled into it as a consumer, and I figured I couldn't be the only person that needed something like this. That's something that was affordable, that was about the price of a used, 20-footer, and something that I didn't even expect to find something that I could fit in my closet. So I figured there just had to be other people out there, even doing some web archive on the internet database, and there wasn't really anybody that had tried selling them into the U.S., and there was nobody really selling anything like this in the U.S. market. So I figured now's as good a time as any to start a business. I was actually I was a couple months removed from donating a kidney. I was about to donate a kidney to my dad, and I figured I would have plenty of time to do all of that paperwork in starting a business. So we got our first boat shortly after my surgery, and we had a couple of inquiries right away from people in the local area, and they were like, all right, well, we want to see how this thing goes together, the assembly process. Well, I was on a 5-pound weight lift limit. So my wife, bless her heart, in November is out there in the driveway putting this boat together for customers. And they were like, oh my gosh, if she can do it, we thought that this guy with this big red beard was going to be the one putting it together. But instead, it's his wife.
And so I can imagine that there was some skepticism or maybe some doubts about the product when you first introduced it. Are you still feeling like you're encountering that? Is the story out there? Where are you now in the consumer's mind?
I think we are just scratching the surface of who we should be talking to as far as these kinds of boats. You've got your hardcore sailors, which I've been kind of not necessarily bullied, but scrutinized quite a bit on, places like Reddit, r/sailing, where somebody will be like, oh, well, I'm looking for a boat that I can do this, that can car top. And they're like, well, you're stuck with this kind of a boat or this kind of a boat. And I'll be like, oh, we'll try out this inflatable one. I'll pick you up from the airport. We can test sail it and kind of show you that it works. And then people would just kind of jump on and just flame it. And I still kind of stay away from posting and r/sailing because those guys seem a little bit stuck in those hard-hauled ways. But there are a lot of people. It was initially, a boat here, a boat there, a boat here, and now we're selling multiple boats a month. People are buying it without having to see it first. And this is kind of a progression over the past 4 years that we've been in business, where in the beginning I was doing a demo for every boat that we sold. And then it was kind of every other, and then every third. And I would say probably every fifth boat we're selling now, people want to do the demonstration and that sort of thing. A lot of people are confident now that they've seen the content that we're putting out and the more content that the manufacturers are putting out. They're seeing that these are real boats. They have halyards, they have roller furlers, they have shrouds, they have all the rigging that you would need for it, and they handle, in some cases, better than the hard-hulled versions. The inflatables specifically. Now, the Xcat is subject to the hard-hulled, since it does have hard hulls, it's kind of subject to that hard-hulled functionality. But the inflatables, they sit on the water, not in the water. So when you go to do a tack in a normal, let's say you're out on a catamaran, on a Hobie wave, and you try to do a tack, the first thing anybody will tell you is good luck. because it is definitely a luck-based maneuver. And with the MiniCats and the Happy Cat, it's not luck-based. It tacks a lot closer to a dinghy because there's no resistance in the tack on the bows. You know, you've got your keels or your centerboard is set aft, so there's no resistance. There's no, I got to backwind this jib to get it over. You know, you can tack easily without the jib, which is, you know, I think a testament to their abilities of the boats. Plus, I mean, the boats are significantly lighter weight. You figure a Hobie Wave weighs almost 300 pounds, just under 300 pounds, and the MiniCat 420 weighs 97.
Wow.
So it's just a significant less amount of effort needed. And what that also means is that you can have a 14-foot boat that you can sail with your family, and your 10, 12-year-old kid can take it out. And if he capsizes it, he can right it himself without getting into a ton of trouble.
Yeah, that's cool. So what is the size range?
The MiniCat Guppy is the smallest sailboat that we sell, and that starts at 9 feet 10 inches. And then we go all the way up to the Happy Cat Hurricane, which is just over 16 feet.
And where are you primarily selling these?
We definitely get the lion's share of our business from the East Coast, with our biggest markets being New England and Florida, I think for obvious reasons. But we have a focus on the East Coast, but we do sell coast to coast. I have customers in Alaska, Hawaii, California, Washington, Arizona, Minnesota. Name a state, and I have at least one customer in that state with a boat that's happy.
All right, North Dakota.
Oh, man, North Dakota. I'm almost positive that I have a North Dakota customer.
Oh, come on.
I'm almost positive. Yeah, because there's almost a lake everywhere.
Yeah.
So, and these are perfect boats because you don't need to keep it in a marina. You don't have to dedicate driveway space to, you know, let's say there's one lake. It's not a huge lake, but there's one lake nearby and you really like sailing and you want to get into it. Well, we have boats, you know, that you can keep in a closet, that you can put in the trunk of your car, that you can take out and just go sailing when the wind is there. You know, sometimes if you're in a landlocked state where you're depending on that lake, there's not going to be amazing wind every day, but there's going to be a couple days when you'll be like, well, this was a fun day. Like this made it worth it right here.
Are you getting into schools or racing clubs or camps or any of those kind of things?
We have struggled to get into some of those camps, and it makes a lot of sense. The setup time. Most sailboat, rental places or schools, they want a boat that is going to be indestructible, is going to hold up even to so much as vandalism and abuse and that sort of thing. And while these boats can hold up to it, but when you're not going to leave them out and assembled all the time, because even with the sails down, if you have a big blow in the middle of the night, you might have a boat not where you left it. You'd have to deflate them and stuff like that. And that adds assembly time every day on a commercial side of things. Whereas on a consumer side, building the boat doesn't take that much longer than stepping the mast on, say, a Hobie.
And how recently did you add Reverso and RowOnAir to your line?
We've had them I think we got them in the same year. So we've had them for about a year and a half, going on 2 years now. We actually won... Back in 2017 at the October show, we did the testing with Sailing World and Sail Magazine for the Reverso, and the Reverso did win best systems from Sail Magazine for 2018. So we've put in some work with them. We've had them. Reverso's been a little bit slower to catch on just because of the higher price point on it, but we've been very popular on yachts. We've been very popular with people that live oceanside or waterfront, but live in one of those apartments. One of those high rises. You can actually, with a Reverso, you can just carry each section down the stairs, or you can keep it in your storage unit. That most apartment complexes have a storage unit in the basement, and it's not that big of a deal to do it. As far as carrying it out and just putting it together takes a couple of minutes, but then you have a no compromise high performance sailing dinghy. Think the Laser or one of the RS or the Topaz boats. It's a fast boat. The top speed on it right now that they've recorded with a Velocitech speed puck is 16.9. So it's cooking pretty good for a dinghy, I think.
So this question might seem a little self-serving because you and what you're selling kind of is a trend in its own, but are there any other trends that you're seeing in sailing over the next year, over the next few years that are changing the direction of what manufacturers are doing or what consumers are expecting?
the two big trends, and I think I'm pushing one of them with making boats more accessible, which is we're trying to find payment options and stuff like that to get boats to become more affordable, so that you don't have to have $5,000 sitting in your bank account right now in order to be able to go sailing on a brand new boat. So we're trying to make it more accessible on that front, but it's the portability that makes it the most accessible. And I think, you're seeing companies like Hobie and other companies make more portable boats. So I think that's one direction that the sailing industry is going. And then the other direction is, and I think we've all kind of drooled at the videos, and that's the foiling. And somewhere along the line, somebody's going to make a portable foiling boat that, the inflatable affords the lightweight. So it'd be interesting to see that hybrid. But I think foiling is one direction on the performance side of sailing. And I think the portability side of it, with the inflatables, or I'm seeing some other boats that are made with like a folding plastic and that sort of thing. So it's interesting to see how it's splitting off. But I think that's going to be the direction most boats are going, is, either portable or it's going to be faster than speedboats.
On the affordability side, what are some of the things that you're exploring to make that initial investment maybe a little less scary?
So a couple of things that we're looking into are, for one, on the purchasing side of things, we're looking at trying to find either leasing or financing options that aren't super expensive, something a little bit longer than a 2-year term, trying to get payments down in between 100 and 200. I think that would be a mid-sized car payment kind of thing, where let's say you just paid your car off and you're like, all right, I'm ready for the next thing. I still like my car, but I want a new toy. And it's not going to really change your month to month because you just paid off your car, that kind of thing. And then the other thing that we're trying to get into, because of the portability of these boats, we're currently researching and trying to figure out how we can work this into a rental program, where we have boats and you could rent it for a day, 3 days, a week, a month. And we want to make it affordable enough that you'll be able to rent it often and not have to worry about the maintenance of your boat or replacing things, or, I don't want to buy this boat and next year they come out with a better version and that sort of thing, because that seems to always happen. There's about a million different small sailboat designs out on the market today, and every single one has its own, set of compromises. And if you rent a boat, you can rent our boat while you're waiting to save up for the boat that you really want, but you can still be portable with it. It's still about, okay, I'm thinking about going to the Outer Banks. I did the research, and, those Outer Banks boats, it's going to be a 45-minute drive from my hotel or from the house that we're renting down to the sailing center, and then I have to launch there, and it's, figure $200 for the day, or $200+ for the day to rent. How can I save money by bringing my own boat with me? And then I can, if you're renting a house on the beach in a place like the Outer Banks or Rehoboth, where there's not really a ton of hotels, it's more of an Airbnb, or, you're renting a house versus a hotel room. People are renting right on the water. Why not just get a boat so you don't have to go anywhere? You can just wake up in the morning, your boat's already there, launch it and go.
Do you find that a lot of people that are looking into your boats are new to sailing and don't know how to sail yet, and part of their process is, I want to buy this boat and I also want to learn how to sail, and you need to point me in the direction of how to do that?
Yeah, so I would say it's about a 50-50 split between customers that are new and customers that sailed sunfishes and lasers and stuff like that, but 20, 30 years ago. And they're looking to get back into sailing, and their wife is like, I don't want a trailer, and I don't want to slip, or I don't even want to go sailing. Some wives, just aren't interested in that. So instead of looking for a cruising boat, with a cabin and all that other stuff, people are like, I just want to go sailing. I don't want to have to deal with anything. I don't even want to deal with maintenance, really. And that's kind of where these boats come in. But for a new person, putting together one of these boats, you're putting everything together. When I owned the Pearson and the Bristol and even the Iroquois, dropping the mast was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know where these things go to. I don't know how tight they need to be. I don't know any of that stuff. Yeah. But with these boats, you just follow the steps. Yeah. And once you memorize the steps, you go, oh, okay, well, this is the forestay, and that's the shroud, and that's you learn all those different things and how everything goes together, because you're assembling it every time. You're becoming intimate with your boat. So let's say you do go out on a 30-knot wind day and you bend something. It's not like, oh my gosh, I bent this, I don't know what to do. You go, oh, I know how to replace that. So I think it kind of gives people a little bit more freedom.
Last question here, and we kind of end with this every time, is when you're talking to people who are thinking about getting into boating or specifically sailing and joining the lifestyle, is there one piece of advice or takeaway that you like to leave with them as they're exploring this lifestyle?
Yeah, if you're on the edge, I definitely strongly suggest to find a sailing center. If you're in the Mid-Atlantic region, I have to give a plug to Baltimore County Sailing Center, who Rob Dean's probably the hardest working guy in sailing right now. They're doing adult learn to sail programs and continuation of education sailing programs. They're very inexpensive. Go get your butt on a boat, sail. The best way to learn how to sail is to sail. You can watch YouTube videos and read books and watch and listen to anything that you want, but just go and do it. Figure out how the sails, you pull the line in a little bit. Does the boat go faster or slower? Your butt will tell you. Are we moving faster or not? And just kind of learn and don't be afraid to fall in the water, especially on these small boats. That's kind of half the fun is, just seeing what you can do with the boat and see how you can get to one place, pick a point, sail there. Even if you have to tack back and forth or jibe or do anything crazy like that. Sailing is such a go and do sport, and every time you go out, you'll get a little bit better and a little bit better. My grandfather was in his 90s, and he was still sailing, and he's probably the best sailor I've ever met, but he was still learning. Every time he went out, he was trying new things. He was trying to figure out if he could get the boat to go a little faster or feel a little bit better under the helm.
I think that's a great way to end. The best way to learn how to sail is to sail.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you. I appreciate the time, and I think this is great, and I love what you guys are doing, and I'm excited to see what other products come from your manufacturers and what other manufacturers you unearth here.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Take care.
All right. See ya.
I had a lot of fun talking to Alex, learning about what him and Casey and Redbeard Sailing are doing to get more people out on the water enjoying the sport. They're definitely on the cutting edge of what's happening in sailing and keeping an eye on new products and trends and bringing those to people in the United States here, making boating more accessible, more portable, and more affordable. And all those things are great, just really to expand the amount of opportunities people have to get out on the water. Look forward to catching up with Alex again in the future and seeing what else they're bringing to the public and what else they're bringing to boating and all the great things they're doing with their charitable efforts. And check them out at Redbeard Sailing. Until next time, happy boating.